What's the best memory you have from out there?
I guess going to Trinidad, almost died. I made good friends, partied with all kinds of people. Yeah, it was great, dude. I really wanted to find my way back there again someday, and kept in touch with some of the people that I met while I was out there, but it never did come to fruition. But yeah, I think if I had to pick one, it would be Trinidad. They had a lot of problems with the way they had set things up and the tides and currents there, and we had towed out a huge. It was a huge barge, and it had such a deep draft that when it was ballasted out, we could drive through it, underneath it, basically through it. And we had to set them up on anchors. When you run anchors offshore, once you start, you can't stop until all the anchors are run, and whatever you towed out there and started to help anchor down is stable. And that can take anywhere from 12 hours to 72 or more. So yeah, end result was went out there, almost died, didn't get hurt, and partied, and that was my first time being out of the country too. So big impact.
That's twice you said almost died. You want to share that story?
It was crazy out there. I mean, the wind and the seas. So Trinidad, and I believe it's pronounced Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago. Tobago is a small island off the coast, and Trinidad is on the coast, the northeast coast of South America. And if I remember that correctly, and so the natural conditions out there at that time, which I don't remember what month it was during the summer months, but I don't remember what month we set sail. I was out there for over 2 months, and we had problems because they prefab sections to build drilling rigs, and they had already sunk one section, and the second section that they were putting on wasn't high enough for the welders to go work safely. They were on the windward side of this huge platform that we had set up out there and run anchors for. And running anchors is an animal in itself. It's like what's that show where they catch snow crabs or something like that, and the guys are bouncing around.
Deadliest catch.
Yeah, the deadliest catch. It's like watching that back deck on a large scale. And we got caught up in the seas, slammed against a barge, made it out of that, and then later on, while we were running anchors, because we had to reposition that thing after they realized that the welders were getting hit with the seas and couldn't work. So we had to reposition the whole rig that we towed down there. And while we were doing that, we got caught in a trough, which is basically sideways in the sea, and started to rock so bad that I was sliding back and forth, riding waves across the back deck, and managed to keep my feet in front of me so that I didn't hit the metal bulwarks and split my head open or something. But so it was exciting. I mean, at that time, I didn't have wife, kids, or any of that stuff, and I was like, that was fantastic. And you make it out alive, and you think you fill your chest with air, and you're like, yep, I'm this, I'm that, let's do it again.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff. But
Yeah.
I look back on it fondly. I would never do it again, but I look back on it
And where did your career take you after you got offshore or got back onshore, I guess?
After so when they laid me off, um, I started looking in the classifieds, the want ads, whatever, jobs section. And I just remember I was in disbelief. I had already reached out to anybody I knew in the oil field, and a lot of places were going through problems at the time, even shipyards, because I mean, they're basically the supporting industry um, for, big marine companies. And everybody was either in a hiring freeze or a layoff phase. Excuse me. And I'm looking in the classifieds for jobs, and everything says experience necessary. There was even a job, I'll never forget this, man. There was a job for a fry cook at a fast food place. And I'll be damned if that thing didn't say experience necessary. And I'm thinking to myself, what does it take, man?
Yeah.
When you hear a ding, pull up the basket, come on, man. And so I realized that the industry chose me at that point. And if I expected to move up from where I was, not necessarily in job status or rank or any of those things, but to at least maintain the same amount of income and, I guess, stature at the workplace, because when you start a new job, you start from the bottom and you start they might tell you to sweep the floor for 3 months just to see if you'll show up, no matter what it is. And you got to eat
Right.
that.
Right.
But I realized that basically any experience that I had in the past 5 years was all marine related. And before that, it was just whatever I could find, which was loading dock or construction or any of that stuff. So the best leg I had to stand on was in the marine industry. So I just went after that.
And how'd your career end up leading to towboats where I met you up there near Baton Rouge?
At the time, like I said, at the time that I got laid off from Tidewater, um, there was a drilling moratorium in the Gulf. There were no new rigs or exploration or um, maintenance on rigs, so to speak. Nothing new was coming out of that. And just in that sentence, you're talking about a host of different services and companies that provide those services, all marine companies. There wasn't a whole lot of action. And like I told you right before that happened, the company I was working for, they had flagged a lot of vessels foreign. So those vessels were working in foreign ports. If you're on the deck and the vessel goes to a foreign port, it has to hire a crew indigenous to that region. So you can leave the country with a vessel, go do a job and come back, but you're not going to be sailing to and from a port local to a foreign region. Unless that vessel is dedicated, flagged to that nation, at which point they have to hire an indigenous crew. So offshore was kind of out at that point for me as an option. So I was applying to anything boat related, and an inland tow company called me. And although it was an incredible cut in pay, I don't remember what it was exactly. It was like $100 to $120 a day less to go work inland for me as a deck crew at that time. But I had been searching for a while. I had just about burned through any 401k I had saved up from the previous company. And it wasn't for lack of trying. I was never, especially at that point, I wasn't lazy. And there was a sense of urgency always with me because I lived on my own since I was 18. So, I mean, I knew what it was to not pay a bill. I knew what it was. I knew what's going to happen if, the lights ain't going to be on tomorrow, So I took it because it was all I could find at the time. And like I said, it's basically a new industry. Even though it's still marine related and you're working on a deck, it's just 100% different from working offshore. Working inland is 100% different from working offshore. So it was like starting over again. Big pay cut, learning just a different anatomy. A different ship has a different anatomy, and different vessels and different crews working in different areas. They're all going to have practices that are unlike you've seen before. So it was like starting over again.
Make them subscribe. They'll like you, but you gotta go.